chance I could remember.
I use elixirs on all my guitars, actually. I can just show up and open the case and it'll sound just as good as it did a week before. As a musician, it's one less thing I have to worry about, and you can't beat that.
Hey, it's Caggiano here for Premier Guitar. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate my favorite alternate tunings for acoustic guitar and some interesting voicings to go along with them. Alternate tunings and open tunings are so important to learn if you want to add a little bit more creativity to your acoustic guitar playing. If you're playing acoustic guitar and you're wanting something a little more interesting than just your basic cowboy chords or bar chords, it's time to check out some alternate tunings. Alternate tunings are a fantastic way to make your guitar play more creative because it's going to add more texture, color, and dimension to your chords. For some alternate tunings, we tune the strings higher, and for some alternate tunings, we tune some of the strings lower. The first alternate tuning we're going to check out is the open E tuning. The open E tuning is great when you're in the key of E. It also gives you a wonderful, bright sound. Now, it's actually pretty easy to get into this open E tuning, and I thought this would be a great one to start with. For the open E tuning, the low E and the high E string stay the same. We don't need to touch them. The B string will also stay the same. Now, the A string, we're going to tune that up a whole step to B. And the D string, we're going to tune that up a whole step to E. Then the G string, we're going to tune that up 1/2 step to G sharp. If we start on the outside strings and work our way in, it's very symmetrical. We have a low E and a high E. Then we have a low B and a high B. Then we have an E and a G sharp, which makes a major third. So from the lowest string to the highest string, we have E, B, E, G sharp, B, E. Strumming through that gives you a beautiful E major chord. The reason why this tuning is giving us an E major chord is because the 1-3-5 of the E major chord is E, G sharp, and B. So I have the root, the fifth, the root, the third, the fifth, and the root again. Now, I recommend using this tuning when you're playing songs in the key of E. Think She Talks to Angels by the Black Crowes. That's that open E sound. So it's pretty easy to see how we play an E major chord. But if we're playing a song in the key of E, we're going to have more than just an E major chord. So let's check out voicings for the diatonic chords of the key of E major. Our diatonic chords are like our Nashville number system chords. Basically our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chords of the key that we're in. So in the key of E major, the 1 chord is E major, the 2 is F sharp minor, the 3 is G sharp minor, the 4 is A major, the 5 is B major, the 6 is C sharp minor, and the 7 is D sharp diminished. So in this open E tuning, we're going to look at 3 shapes: a major shape, minor shape, and diminished shape. That way we can play all of our diatonic chords in the key of E. As you can see with this E major chord, it's just the open strings. So you could just use a bar for the 4 chord and 5 chord, but I really want to take advantage of these nice open strings. So for these major shapes, instead of using a bar, I'm going to open up the B and the high E string. So instead of using just a bar on all 6 strings, I'm going to use index, middle, ring, and pinky on the low 4 strings, all on the same fret. I can play open E how I had it. For the 4 chord of A, I'm going to do this on the 5th fret. For the 5 chord of B, I'm going to shift that up 2 frets. So that's my major shape. 1 chord, 4 chord, then 5 chord. You can even play the 1 chord up here on the 12th fret. Beautiful. For the minor chord, I need to flat the 3rd. The 3rd is located on the G string. So I'm basically going to take this exact same shape, but the fretted note on the G string needs to be moved back by 1 fret. So the shape's going to end up looking like this: middle, ring, pinky, and index. Now I'm going to place it right here on the 2nd fret for the 2 chord of the F sharp minor. So this is middle, ring, pinky, all on the 2nd fret. Then my index finger is 1 fret back on the 1st fret of the G string. So this is my minor 2 of F sharp minor. I'm going to shift that up 2 frets to play the minor 3 of G sharp minor. And then I'm going to shift this up to the 9th fret to play the minor 6 chord of C sharp minor. So I have my minor 2, minor 3, minor 6. Now the diminished 7th chord is basically like our minor triad, but the 5th is flat. The 5th is located on our A string that's now tuned to the note B. So I'm going to shift this up 2 frets to get to that 7th scale degree, which is D sharp. And I need to now flat the note that is located on the A string tuned to B, which is the 5th string. So I'm going to change the fingers to make it ring, middle, pinky, index. The pinky and index stay where they are. This is now the diminished 7th chord, which is a D sharp diminished. Now I fret this chord like this so that I can pivot with my index and pinky. Basically, I can keep them where they are for the minor shapes going into the diminished. But if you wanted to fret a little bit differently, you could do ring, index, pinky, middle, if that's easier for you. So now let's go through all of our diatonic chords for the key of E in our open E tuning. My major 1 chord, minor 2, minor 3, major 4, major 5, minor 6, diminished 7, and then my 1 chord, I can just place it on the 12th fret. I also like doing a harmonic for that. The next tuning we're going to look at is the DADGAD tuning. I love this tuning so much. It gives you a very Irish folky sound. This tuning is so unique because it does really feel like a D chord, but there's no third in the tuning. The way we're going to tune this from standard tuning to DADGAD is the low E and high E are now going to be tuned down a whole step to D. Then the A string is going to stay the same, but the B string is going to be tuned a whole step down to A. So again, we have this symmetrical vibe here with the D and D, then A and A. The D string is going to stay the same, and the G string is also going to stay the same. So from low to high, I have D, A, D, G, A, D, DADGAD. Now, even though this is very symmetrical like our open E tuning, the notes of these strings do not equal a full 1 chord of D. This is not necessarily a D major chord because there's no third, which is the note F sharp. But there is a G, which gives it this suspended feel. The G is the 4 of the D major chord. So strumming this open gives us a very interesting sound because this is actually a suspended chord. I usually play in DADGAD when I want to have a D drone and play some melodic lines. So in the DADGAD tuning, there's a really cool thing you can do on the middle 2 strings. I'm going to be playing ascending thirds, major and minor thirds, up and down the fretboard of the guitar using these 2 strings, the D string and G string. I'm going to basically have 2 shapes, ring and index and ring and middle. They're going to alternate a bit here. Here's the pattern. I'm going to start off with ring and index on frets 4 and 2. Then I'm going to shift up by 1 fret, but now play ring and middle. Then shift up 2 frets with still ring and middle. Then shift up by 2 frets, but now ring and index. Then shift up by 2 frets, still ring and index. And then shift up by 1 fret for ring and middle. Now it resolves nicely there, but you can go up by 2 frets and do ring and index. And up by 2 frets and do ring and index again. And you can make some really beautiful lines. You can hammer on, pull off. The last we're going to look at here is the open C. This is a very interesting voicing because it is tuned so low. The low E string has now been tuned down to a C. But what's also cool about this is the 2 high strings, the high E and the B string, have both been tuned to C, which is going to give it this almost 12-string guitar effect. So we have 2 adjacent strings that are tuned to the exact same note. So let's break this down. The low E string is tuned all the way down to C. The A string is tuned down to G. The D string is tuned up to E. The G string stays the same. The B string is tuned up to C. And the high E string is tuned down to C. I think this may be one of the most fun tunings to play in. Think Bon Iver's Skinny Love. Now I'm going to show you 2 interesting things you can do with this tuning. I'm first going to show you how you can play a 1, 4, 5, 6 chord And then I'm going to show you how you can play some melodic lines. Now, because this tuning is tuned to the chord C, we're going to be in the key of C for this. So my 1 chord would be a C chord, my 4 chord would be an F chord, my 5 chord would be a G chord, and my minor 6 chord would be an A minor chord. For the 1 chord of C, I like to do 2 different things. We can just play all the strings open, because all of the strings are a 1, 3, 5 of C. They're all tuned to a C, E, or G. Now we can also play the 5th fret of the A string, which has been tuned to G, and the 5th fret of the G string. So we have 2 options for the 1 chord. Open, and then 5th fret. And I like to fret this with my middle and ring. For the 4 chord of F, there's one voicing that I really like. Now technically this has a little bit more of a 1 sus4 feel, like a suspended of the 1 chord, but it will still function as a 4 chord in the key of C. It's very simple. I'm simply going to place my middle finger on the A string, which has been tuned to G, 2nd fret, and my index finger on the D string, which has been tuned to E, on the 1st fret. So I've got middle and index. 1, 4. You can see it does give it that suspended feel. Then there's 2 things that I like to do for the 5 chord. Very simply, I can just place 2 fingers on the 7th fret of the D string, which has been tuned to E, and the G string. I like to use middle and ring. You can also take what looks like a C shape and shift it up 1 fret. That will also work for the 5 chord. So for my 5 chord, I have these 2 options. Then for my minor 6 chord, I like to do exactly what I did for that other option of the 1 chord, where I had middle and ring on the 5th fret, and just move that down to the 2nd fret. That sounds great for the A minor. So for my 1 chord, I have open, then that 5th fret. For the 4 chord, I've got this. For the 5 chord, I've got 2 options, or this C shape. And then for the minor 6. So let me play around with the 1, 4, 5, 6 chord progression. 1, 4, 5, minor 6. Absolutely beautiful. Now let's check out some ideas for melodic lines. Again, one of the coolest things about this tuning is the 2 high strings are both tuned to the note C. This is going to give your guitar a very 12-string sound. It's honestly going to sound like a mandolin. Now the beautiful thing about this is the open is C. So we can literally play a major scale. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So you can play any lines you want. And you can even add in the other open strings to have this like C chord drone over it. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you've been inspired by these tunings. If you've been hitting a wall with creativity for your acoustic guitar playing, I challenge you to check out one, if not all, of these alternate tunings.